No slides, no pitches, no agenda. Episode 19. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. How about you?
Doing okay. Had a couple meetings this morning. Looks like coming a couple enduring planet seemed good. Uh, also, I might be doing some work for a company that I can't speak of. And another company replied that,
Juggle the whole. I need to say something to people so I can say something, but I also can't say the things about the thing that I want to talk about because I can't talk about it. Ah,
well, I got an email. Do you know that principals are your pals? He said principles as without the pal. And I go, well, I better not correct him.
yep, yep. Oh, I remember it was. I'm past NDA on this. When I interviewed for an Apple project, it was officially with VMware, but their client was Apple, and um, and I heard in the interview, I learned so much about the awful magic sauce that made iCloud work at the time. Um,
Oh,
and this is more than 10 years ago. So it was like, wow, I never want to use that product ever again because they were supplying the storage system for it, and we were supposed to be working on that. And it was like, wow. And it was so hard to not tell people about it. and and actually, and now that I think about it, it's not dissimilar to how anyone who works in the classified world, whether in the military or anywhere else, where you can't talk about the things, so you forget them.
yeah. 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 That's a good one.
Like
Yeah.
I remember that there was the details of it at the time. I remember I knew the details at the time because we talked through all this stuff and looked at architectures and then and now I can't remember any of it. I only remember the feeling of it. And
Yeah. Yeah, I get you there. My
problem, right? It's like, oh, suddenly they're allowed to talk about this thing, and then they're not anymore. Hey, Chris, welcome.
my brother worked, he was the safety guy on he was a civilian nuclear engineer. And he could talk. He could give me just teeny little bits of information so that we had something to talk about,
Yeah.
that wouldn't, how much coolant do you have in the system? Well, I can't say.
I can't really even tell you if we do or don't have coolant in the system.
Is it pure water?
You can
You
assume
know,
it contains some oxygen.
yeah, 6 mole water. Well, what's 6 mole water? Well, it's about as pure as you can get.
So, Chris, what's on your mind? You're still muted, by the way.
Yeah. Uh, well, I think the last time we talked a bit about, kind of left it on like talking a bit about, uh, payment structuring or like how to, sort of like, structure, getting paid for these kinds of gigs. It's been a few weeks. I've been, doing some other things. So I haven't been able to get back in.
Welcome back.
Yeah. The, I guess interesting part is, so basically I've got a friend who's a founder at a startup, and it's one I'd actually done some contracting work a couple years ago when they were like just getting started. So it was like, you know, if it had been sort of a better opportunity, it would have been like great to sort of get in on, but, it was much more shaky and sort of like, so now it's a couple years later, they're, looking, relatively stable. It's not necessarily going to explode, but and they're needing some more DevOps technical work, that I'm really good at, my background. But, yeah, it's sort of, they're kind of already like leadership heavy of like, 7 like VPs for like a 30 person, already have like a VP of engineering. So it's sort of, debatable like how much I can come in and like, really, take over some leadership stuff. Um, but also like, I don't necessarily want to be tied into something that, I mean, they want someone to come on board. They've had a DevOps person, but it sounds like they're going through some personal issues and they're sort of like, they need some redundancy at the very least, to,
They're thinking, let's bring you in as an engineer, and you're thinking, I don't just want to be an engineer anymore.
right. Yeah, and I've made that clear to him. Like I said, it's not exactly like a friend, but it's like a friend of a friend. We're friendly or acquaintances. Yeah, I've talked about all this with him, and he's on board. He thinks it's a good direction for me, but it's just more of like how do you make it fit, and how do you make this the right situation? And it's kind of like I don't know. It's like I'm kind of sort of like maybe I just sort of keep it fractional and sort of consulting for them for a while and then see how things play out or, or what. But I think that's where he wants someone, full time to sort of make sure he's got someone for his business, So I don't know. I'm sort of figuring out how to navigate that.
Well,
Like maybe I structure it as a monthly retainer thing.
exactly. Yeah, that's where a monthly retainer can give him some comfort that he knows that you're going to be available even if you're not doing all the things. But you want to make sure that you have some good coverage around protection around your time so that it doesn't wind up with you being full time, just
right
expectation.
Right. So okay, I'm glad to. Thank you for being a sounding board.
Any other leads? Anything else you're working on?
Not anything active. It's sort of been a question of like whether this would become something full time. So I've sort of like had sort of like, it's sort of let other things sort of fall to the side. But it's like okay, if we're gonna settle on something partial time, then I can go back to sort of looking for other leads and stuff.
Right.
How many hours per week is full time now?
Well, at least 40. Like that's
this is a loaded question when you're talking to people in DevOps.
Yeah.
I get different clues from different people. A
buddy of
part-time
mine
job is 40 hours now. What?
Yeah. Right. Well, a buddy of mine that we play D&D with, he's his team of 3 people. They do 1 month on call, and so that often means working 6-7 days a week, and working 16-hour days for a month, and then he gets a month off or so before because there's only 3 of them, so unacceptable in my opinion. But
Yeah, but we all do what we have to do.
yep. But it's what you got to do to keep the job too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where like even in this startup role would be like, with how much of it is all, there's balances between, the retainer, I guess, maybe being, how much is just cash versus like cash and equity. And, and like the more equity you got, the more sort of incentivized you are to like, you put in that extra work to make sure that equity becomes something someday. Right.
And yet at your level, at the DevOps engineer level, you have zero control. This is why I hate equity compensation like this, because you don't have any effect. I mean, yes, you could destroy the company. We can just root when drunk and delete everything. But that's not what we're going to do. But we don't have any control over how the company sells, how the company acquires customers, how much they get product market fit. We don't have any of that control. At least if you're coming in as a CTO, you have theoretically a seat at the table in those conversations. Not all CTOs do. A lot of CTOs don't. But at least in theory, you can try. But as a software engineer, as a DevOps engineer, being paid equity is just a scam.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, definitely not pure equity, but it would be
Equity in exchange for comp is a scam.
Yeah. But yeah, well, that's where I've always really looked at like equity as like it's an okay bonus, right? Like you still should be getting your pay, but
right. I'm looking at
that equity turns out being worth something down the road, then great. That's a bonus, but
right. I'm looking at some performance, bonus equity type arrangements right now for a team, but they all materially participate in the success of the business.
Mhm.
Their sales, their sales leadership, this is the sales organization. They are selling products. They are selling a thing. And then there's mechanics who are involved in the work of a different product that's being sold. And so, unlike everything that we do in software, where we're way down in the weeds, we don't get to control the quality of the thing that we ship. We only get control that somebody said you must ship it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I've been working on. Currently, I'm looking at buying a business. So,
anything you can say on that?
nothing new. I mean, right now I am trying to find financing, not just for the purchase of the business, but for the inventory financing, because it's a specialty business that has its own financing requirements for inventory purchase. Because I don't know, I don't have $3 million in my pocket to buy it, and but so it's a line of credit for revolving line of credit basically for that, and that is currently the sticking point because the seller's line of credit for this wouldn't transfer to the buyer. And
Mm-hmm.
so he said we can make a deal work, knowing that it has to be SBA financed, for the business purchase, but that won't fix the inventory. So that is my current chase, is talking to banks.
And what are they giving you for interest rates? What do you forecast?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For the inventory line of credit, he said his expectation would be 0.5 to 1% above prime, on that revolving line of credit.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Now that's his expectation based on.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
When you actually see the contract, it might
Right. Coming in
differ.
as somebody who doesn't have the level of financing credit history,
Yeah. Right.
then I may get something different. So we'll see. But I got turned down from one specialty financer already, because they only do it if you've owned the business for 5 years.
Oh, okay. Good point. Good point. Is that something you can bring a partner on for?
Yes, I mean, one way or the other, you know, worst case, I find somebody that wants to make a 15% return on their, $3 million they have sitting around in the bank, and use their money as that line of credit, right? And just give them a higher than I'd like to pay interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
But and so that's a possibility. We'll just have to see where it goes.
I watch a few videos on people in that industry, and they're educational. Let me put
Yeah.
it that way.
It's different. It's interesting how different and also the same it is, to running software teams, especially like running an auto service shop. The when they start, except that as I said, they really materially participate in the thing that is being shipped because they're working on a car. They fix a car. They did or they didn't fix a car.
Yeah.
um, it's always more complicated than that. But unlike so much of what we do in software, where we're so far down in the weeds, if you're running like a software agency where you're delivering software as your product, that's one thing. But in the SaaS world, we're too far disconnected. But the auto service shops have all the same management problems that we have in our teams now, keeping them motivated, keeping them focused, not stuffing their calendar full of too many oil changes, and letting them focus on the hard problems instead. Letting them have focus time. All these problems that we do with software, they're the same.
Okay. I got myself a new toy or tool I was pretty pleased with. You ever seen one of these?
Oh yeah.
$30.
Is it the real one? Is it the clone? There's a lot of
I-
knockoffs that are.
But also, if it was a clone, it probably reads the same.
And that's the other thing I've seen, is that the knockoffs are when the metrology guys actually put them on and do testing on them, most of the knockoffs
Yeah.
I mean, they're actual, literally illegal clones, right? They're showing Moya Toyo on the case and on the thing.
So one of the clues is this.
Yeah.
The other clue is this one says made in Japan, right?
Yeah. So at least
camera.
the plastic casing has the right markings on it. Yeah.
So that was good. I mean, this guy had meth head vibes all over him. I'm sorry.
I got way back in the day, I got a fluke multimeter off the guy. Yeah.
The serial number is printed at the same time as the sheet, which is another clue.
Yeah.
Then how this staple bites
Okay.
into that.
So you've done your research into the knockoffs then.
Yeah, if the knockoff, they don't get it as straight and level as this staple is.
Yep.
But
I got a fluke from a guy that was hitchhiking because he needed a ride, and having been a hitchhiker before and having been stranded on the side of the road and had to walk 30 and 40 miles, that when I drive my VW bus, I certainly, when I was younger, picking up somebody on the side of the road was normal. And
I remember that. Yeah.
And he gave me a fluke multimeter. He sold it to me for $50. And at the time, that multimeter was $500.
Oh yeah, I bought one for my brother when he was in college, and he still has it. Because that's the Fluke multimeters at the time, and I was working at the fire lab. I was working with a Fluke 2400A, which only has one button on the front, and you have to communicate to it with a GPIB bus. Man, that thing could read a thermocouple 300 feet. It was awesome piece of equipment.
And I had it for a long time until one of my former employers stole it. He stole it and another bag of my tools when I got fired, and he didn't let me in to get my stuff. He only delivered it to me. So then it's like, well, I can't see what I don't see to know what I'm not getting,
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it was in the truck.
Going back to your earlier discussion, I don't know if I'm just missing some context, out of the loop, all the things. What is the context around the buying a company, or the background, why is there? I mean,
trying to find money.
A source of income.
Yes, source of income.
Mm.
The coaching business did not. The coaching business did not create business. I spent 6 months on the experiment, and so I'm moving on. And my fractional business is like so many folks that I'm not finding clients. And
Subfractional.
So
you call it like you see it.
Yeah.
The fractions aren't adding up to one.
The fractions are adding up to 0.
Less than 1.
And there's a lot of divide by 0 errors going on. And so what can I do next? So it's going back to roots, right? My family history is in the automotive industry in one way or the other. I worked in a shop 27 years ago. I was a very, very low end mobile mechanic 29 years ago. And my grandfather was a flipper. He bought and sold cars. That was how they paid probably half their income, because his full-time job, did not pay. He was a preacher.
Okay.
So, my uncle had a carburetor shop. My grandmother's sister's son, so wherever that is, right? He had a speed shop. Eventually built a race car for his mother. So she started racing when she was 68, 65. I forget. I've got a picture over here. So she started drag racing in her 60s, and set a lot of records. And another cousin who had Granny's brother had a junkyard. Another cousin had a transmission shop. So this is home turf. So I'm looking to see what, I mean, it might not be in the auto industry, but that's where I have
It's
experience.
familiar to you.
It's familiar, and I like cars.
Mm-hmm.
So I like computers. I like cars. If I hadn't gone into computers, I'd have ended up in cars. I mean, I still ended up in cars while I was trying to build computer businesses. You know?
I had a Model T Ford that only I could start because I was the only person strong enough to crank it. And to add an electric start added like 200 pounds to the vehicle because battery, hogshead, electric start motor, copper wire, all this. The uh, the 1915 Model T, it was only like a
Honey,
15
you
year
don't look
old.
that old.
What's that?
You don't look that old.
I'm not that old, but had one. I had a 1915 for it
My
was
mom had a
wood
Model
wheels.
T too. Yeah.
But it was wood wheels, and I don't know if I got a handy photo of it. But Archie and the Archie, Betty, and Veronica, the Archies. He would often ride around in a roadster. It was a you know I could put 10 kids in the back seat and 1 or 2 kids up front and just drive around at 10 miles an hour, and everybody thought that was great. But it was not a practical car. I would say it was only like a 5-month car. You can only use it like 5 months out of the year. I remember getting it out for Easter and heading over to the Easter egg hunt. But man, that thing was hard to crank in February. It was really hard. Oil viscosity became became
Yeah.
very cognizant of what I would call oil viscosity.
Yep. Yep. You feel it.
Oh yeah.
And you learned the lesson of the thumb.
Oh yeah, you learn the lesson of the thumb. I
Thumb's gonna
remember
over, never thunder.
yeah, always under. I remember being on the ferry and they wouldn't let me pre-start it. I had to wait till they said I could start.
And then everyone's waiting for you.
And then everyone's waiting for me. I got it started quickly because once the vehicle's warm, it is pretty easy to start. But there is a process to it.
Yep.
And I got it. I got it whipped and got in and tore out of there.
I've never hand cranked anything. The closest I've got is the motorcycle that I call a chainsaw, 98cc chainsaw, and pull starting that thing. I wish it had a kickstart on it. I wish I could just straddle it and kick it because man, that thing when it's cold and it hasn't fired in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's I wouldn't say it's a philosophy, but it's you got to get prepped. And I have been, and it's in the inverse of how many people are standing around watching you. If there's a lot of people standing, it's going to take forever to start that thing.
So yeah, that's the path I'm on, Chris. Is trying to find a business by, and
well, what kind of vehicles they have many electric? What's the percentage of electric vehicles on the lot?
on this one, 0.
Oh, okay.
That's something that we may consider in the future. I mean, a dealership will pivot as a dealership needs to pivot. That's a given. But they have a very specific niche that they're in right now, and definitely the electric cars would fit in as test cars. But
yeah, I got my wife a Nissan Leaf, and she just thinks that is awesome. Other than that, I think there's a $250.
You can charge at home and do your driving within charging range. I mean, I think the economics are definitely there.
Yeah, we're close to between 2 and 3 cents a mile based on energy costs, not tires, insurance.
Sure. But that's roughly the same any which way.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's 5 cents a kilowatt hour here, and she gets 4.6 miles per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
So that's pretty close to 2 cents, but I don't want to go toward. I think it's closer to 3 cents for some reason. And the factory let's see. The reimbursement rate right now is 70 cents a mile, or federal reimbursement rate.
Okay, so she's driving for work.
No, it's just when I was doing fire investigations for the county, uh, um, it was
Yeah.
65 cents. Now it's 70 cents a
It's
mile.
interesting. I mean, I saw a guy doing some report on EV trucks and towing with the EV trucks. And he broke down some of the costs, but he also showed how different it is if you charge at home and pay at
Oh,
home
yeah.
versus if you pay at certain, I won't say who brand charging stations, and how those can cost more than gasoline.
It may possibly. I know when I take my wife up to the city north of us, I'll take her in, and sometimes I spend $2.50 at a DC charging place. Sometimes I can't charge for some reason. There's a network error. Well, that doesn't help me. But gas, I can always walk up to a window and hand a guy a 20 and get some gas in my car to get home. It's a free
True.
charge. Can you just turn it on? No, network. There's a
Maybe
network.
we need to fix the technology here.
Well, yeah, it's just, if it's a free charger, why do you have to have my credit card to charge? There are a couple of free chargers around that we can use, but there are certain needs I have when I'm charging. One, I need to know where a bathroom is. It's just one of those things I need on occasion, especially when I'm charging. And the other one is, I want something to do because it might take uh, a while to charge. So if they're, they should put chargers in a location where there's something to do.
Yep.
And their bathrooms.
Well, and with faster chargers, buddy of mine bought a ID Buzz, the new not a bus, and
Yeah.
and he pulled into a Flying J, and it was charging at max rate, so it was looking at like a 15-minute charge. And Flying J, and he'd been complaining about some of the other, charging stations because the Buzz has it on the back, and
Yeah.
he pulls into a charging space, but it's not pull through because they decided to put a pylon in the middle of it, and it's got a really short cord, so he can't
Right.
in the middle of the space and charge. He has to like pull halfway out of the space so he can charge, and it's like all this really weird, design that
Yeah.
Flying J's like, well, we've been building gas stations with ways for cars to get in here and out all these years. We know how this works.
And I do think that companies with a knowledge base are a good place to put EV charging stations in.
Yep.
Now, the Leaf, I can do CHAdeMO, but and that's a DC charging, and it starts out fast, but it dwindles off. You can just see it.
Okay. Yeah.
An asymptotic.
You get
You try
that
to get
first hit, and then which a lot of times, I mean, all you need is that initial charge.
Right, but
If you're planning accordingly.
if you're wanting to go to 80%, which is a standard Leaf thing to do,
Right.
and you start out at 30%, well, you get up to 50%, fine, but to get to 80% will take you another 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So again, if there's a place to use the bathroom, if there's a place to find something to do, I don't care what it is. If I can go sniff the flowers, something to keep my brain occupied. But they're getting it. There's a charging station on Highway 12 down here. It has none of that. It doesn't have a bathroom, but there's all kinds of stuff. And when you pull in there at under 30%, wife's turning off all the no radio, no air conditioning, no heated seats.
I saw somebody comment on one of the cars. I don't know. It could have been a truck. I don't know what it was. That if you left the air conditioning system on, it would massively impact the rate of charge. Way more than it would, mathematically, scientifically impact the rate of charge. But like the charging system wouldn't allow it to charge at full rate if the air conditioning was still on.
Interesting. Okay, I think I had seen something like that. Um, a CHAdeMO is something around 50 kilowatts. Uh, Not that you can use all that. Um, Around here, let's see. I read. The air conditioning. You can use hydrocarbons in your air conditioning system.
Oh yeah.
You know that. You know
I have
why?
a refrigeration license. I know this.
Well, do you know why they kept saying you had to put hydrofluorocarbons in your refrigeration system for years, and for decades and decades? But the butane and propane work just fine,
Right.
and they're liquid petroleum, so they automatically lubricate. They have better heat transfer capability qualities. Yet the auto industry, no, you can't do that. You can't do that.
Well, there's
It's political. It's political.
it's not just political; it's money. Because
Oh,
if
okay.
you can make more on a proprietary product than you can on a commonly available product, right? It's if you're using propane or butane or a blend of it, that's just the assembly of things that are readily available. Instead of if I have to customize my own hydrocarbon or hydrofluorocarbon, right? And I can package it and sell it and license it, then I can make a lot more money. Like R134 as a replacement for R12, one of the big arguments is its inflammability. And that was the whole reason that some of the other other refrigerants, such as a hydrocarbon blend, were not allowed was because they are flammable. And if, they will ignite, blah, blah, blah. And there's specific measurements for all of this, but they only test the gas.
If
They
you
don't
burn
test, but
hydrofluorocarbon, you create
R134
phosgene gas. Do you know what a phosgene gas
R134
is?
is a mixture in the assembly that has a flammable oil component to it. And so if it is released under pressure, like it would be in an actual event,
Mhm.
it is sprayed under pressure with a flammable oil. And
And
therefore,
if you sprayed a hydrofluorocarbon on a hot exhaust manifold, you would produce what's called a phosgene gas.
yep,
You know what
that's
phosgene
true. Yep.
you know what a phosgene gas is?
Yeah, mustard gas.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad to breathe. So, I mean, there's so
Yep.
little in the car. I mean, there's only like 6 ounces or 8 ounces. That's not a big fire.
It would flash off so fast.
Yes, it would.
And there's no more supply. It would flash
Right.
off so fast that it wouldn't ignite anything. I mean, it might ignite paper.
Sure, it would
It
burn the
might,
wire. Yeah.
but so would other things. And
Yeah.
there would almost have to be something to cause the fire. So that was all. It's just a flash within a fire.
See, in Washington State, you can't even buy 134A.
Yeah.
It's all under you got
Right.
the license.
And so we replaced it with 1, 2, 3, 4, which, by the way, is flammable.
It's well,
It's
I bought
slightly less flammable than butane and propane.
I don't know, so I'm just gonna agree with you. But,
So we've had to retool the entire industry with machinery that because it's no longer allowed to like do 1, 2, 3, 4. You could do R12 and 134, and so we're sticking with automobiles. With just a gauge set, manifold, and supply or a tank to evacuate it or whatever, and you can do all this fully legally. For R1234, you have to, which is it A, is it F? F. It's an F. R1234 F. I forget. Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then this one, which is what we have standardized on the United States. And so even European cars that would be something else are built for the US specific. The machines have to do extensive checking internally to check that it's not a blend, et cetera, et cetera. So you have to have a verifier built into the machine. It does verification automatically. Then the machines have to do like internal leak detection And so all you have this very complicated machine to do what is a simple job only because of the flammability rating.
Well, I
It's
ended up
about release. It's about the flammability.
I ended up buying 3 cans on eBay because I found someone, because if you do it on Amazon, they won't ship it to you. You can put it in your cart. It says I can't ship it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not even 134A, it's um Echo Solve or something like that. And it doesn't even say on the can what it is, but you can dig into it and find it's butane and propane. Well, I've worked with butane and propane to burn houses down for a long time. I know how the stuff works. And I put it in my wife's car, and she says, "Oh man, it's cold now." And I basically bought 3 cans for our family
Just make sure
reunion.
you label it. Just make sure you label it so that the next tech who ends up working on your car down the road when you've sold it says, "Okay, I have to dispose this as hazardous material because
It actually works. I think it works better.
I agree completely. It is a better refrigerant. All the data, all the statistics say it. The same thing with R152, right? The stuff that we use in cans, in compressed air can, in
Okay, I know what you're
dusters,
talking about. I know what you're
right?
talking about.
Works almost as well, and is again like all the properties are. It's a better refrigerant, but the way the industry went, R1234 is like 10x, maybe. So sometimes it's been 100x more expensive than 134.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right. And so refrigeration in automobiles, and yeah.
I see this as you're fluent in this.
It's like I said, I finally broke down and got my refrigeration license so I can do this for other people instead of just myself.
Okay. Okay. Well,
But what I
I've got
cannot do, because I am certified, I cannot use a hydrocarbon-based refrigerant.
okay.
Nothing. You are allowed to do it as an owner doing your own stuff. The EPA does not regulate you as an individual for refrigerants. They only regulate someone doing it for pay.
Well, in Washington State, they banned.
And then state by state has their own stuff. Yeah.
Well, it used to be you'd go into any auto, the generic auto store, and on the end caps in June, you could buy 134A with
Right.
with a hose and a
Most of the
dial.
country you can still, but there are a few states that have individually banned the sale of it. As far as the federal government goes, you as an owner, anybody can buy less than 2 pounds. I should know this, but it's like less than 2 pounds. You can buy less than 2 pounds for without having a license, but to buy more than that and to buy in bulk containers, so like buy 30-pound bottles and stuff like that, you have to have a refrigeration license now for R134 where you didn't used to. Anybody up until 2017, I think that change was basically when they started phasing R134 or 1234 in, is when that they started to mandate, because used to it was only R12 for mobile refrigerant, only R12 required a license to buy since the mid 90s, and then now they've reworked it so 134 falls into that too.
Yeah, because the 134 was supposed to be non ozone depletion. It was supposed to be the next best thing. Plus, an R134 system has to be bigger than an R12 system.
What pisses me off about the entire industry and about the entire thing is that for all of these puny little things that we deal with, we're talking, even my 40-foot RV would hold 12 pounds of refrigerant.
Okay.
Right, across, and it's had 7 condensers coils within, in its internal engine. This is the engine driven system, right? And it was R12 built, because it was built in 88. And your typical car holds basically 1 to 2 pounds of refrigerant.
Yeah.
A commercial, and I'm gonna misquote the statistic, but a commercial refrigeration system is allowed to where you lose something like 6% of its volume every year. It's allowed to leak 6% of its volume every year, and that could hold 200 pounds of refrigerant,
Okay.
and it's allowed to leak 6%.
Huh.
And like I said, that's not the exact number, but it's something in that range.
It seems like a lot.
And when you go, well, we could assemble all of the cars on the planet, and we could evacuate all of. We just vent them all to atmosphere, and we would still not cover like a day's worth of leak from commercial refrigeration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our whole world revolves around these refrigerants and heat pumps now. Heat pumps, um, heat pumps
Well, even
tied.
R410, right? R410 was the R22 replacement. It's being phased out to be replaced with something else complicated and worse to work with.
The heat pump that I had put in probably 2 years ago, could be 3 years ago, had 410 in it, and they use 410 because it works down to a pretty cold temperature.
Yeah.
Sometimes with heat pumps, if you get too cold, they won't develop enough pressure to turn on.
There's a lot of interesting techniques to make low temperature heat pumps work, including electric heating coils
Oh yeah,
on the outdoor unit, and that's still more efficient because it just has to warm it up to keep it from freezing. And so if it puts 33 degrees in the air around it, then it can still cool at 20 degrees lower than that, or it can still turn it around and pull the heat out of that in a way more efficient manner. Um, so that and insulation and a bunch of other things can really help with low temperature heat.
well, in our industry, it a pellet stove or wood stove and a heat pump are a good combination
Absolutely, absolutely.
because when it gets really cold, the pellet stove or the wood stove can take most of the heating load.
Right.
If you don't fire up your wood stove, the heat pump can make up for that time.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and for the remainder of the year, then or even it can even potentially it can manage the 10 degrees off the top that
Right.
where you're just regularly living. Once you've warmed the place up, if you've got a reasonably well insulated place, you can use the pellet stove to warm it up, and then you can just let it drop down to a subsistence level and let the heat pump continue to keep the place comfortable because it doesn't have to bring it up as far.
Right. If we're just running on the heat pump, we're about 68, 67 degrees. But if we're running on the wood stove, it's 74, 75 degrees. And that's a big difference if you want to relax. If you want to unwind and read a book, because if you're reading a book, you're not making a lot of body temperature. You're not working a lot, so you're not making yourself warm by moving around a lot. But you're trying to unwind, and if it's 69, 67 degrees, you better have some blankets.
Right.
And if it's 74, 75 degrees, you don't need the blankets. My wood stove cranks out the heat.
So, Chris, are we boring you? I know we don't have a lot of fractional to talk about right now because nobody's here but us.
Yeah, and I show up because he doesn't have a lot of people showing up.
I'm thinking that next week will be the last one. Next week will be the 20th one. So I think I might wrap them up next week.
Okay.
Because I'm just not getting attendance. I mean, no offense, Chris.
Yeah.
But like when I get one person, it's okay. Great. We have a conversation, but it's not, we don't have a way to, we're not talking about the larger problems that I was hoping that we would talk about. And we did kind of early on,
Yeah, I don't have much to say about refrigerants, but if if you got any good like how to fight house insurance claims adjusters,
hire your own adjuster.
Well, I talked to a public adjuster, and then he referred me to a lawyer, and now I'm gonna have a lawyer send an email to get them to do the thing that they said they were gonna do in the first place, or a
I hate
letter.
to say it, but yeah, that's the
I used to have an adjuster's license.
Yeah.
What's your problem? What's your issue?
So the issue is, basically it gets really complex, but try and keep it as simple as I can. Water damage on one of the floors. We have on hardwood floors. We have hardwood throughout the house, matching hardwood,
Mhm.
4-story, San Francisco house. It's very, vertical. So it's got
Right.
matching floors, from the bottom entryway all the way up the stairs, every floor, to every floor. So, they're like, well, they can't basically change or replace just the one floor then. So because you replace the one floor, it may or may not match and likely won't match the other flooring that's already there. And then you've got like one mismatched floor in a house. This is a $3 million house, so it's like it we it really needs to all match. It like you're talking about like significant loss of value, right? And up front they were fighting with that. The contractors are coming out and saying, yeah, we'll have to probably have to change all the flooring and stuff, and they committed to that. And we've got emails from the lady saying that like we're going to change all the flooring. They came in, basically started, and based on that initially we were like, well, we don't want this headache. We kind of knew there was basically was probably a little water leaked in, but probably wasn't that big a deal. But
Well, what was the I used to work a lot in subrogation. What was the source of the water?
so basically just like there's a bit of like a drain on the back that in our basically we have. It's kind of hard to say. So our house is kind of on the side of but it's kind of, up near a hill, like one of the San Francisco hills. And
Okay.
it's basically like a small little deck behind on this bottom floor that's, got a little drain. And so like all the water kind of comes there, goes down the drain, but any like, bit of debris, starts to block up that drain. It'll back up a little bit. So basically there's been a little bit of like backed up water, and that's kind of got under the side of the house and got into the flooring here. And so they tried to dehumidify it for a couple of months. It didn't completely go away. And this is where like they were trying to convince us, like we didn't consider any of this a problem, but they're like, well, we need to kind of rip up the floor, make sure there's no mold. And if we do that, then we're going to replace the floor. And if we do that, then we're going to replace all the flooring to make it all match. I was like,
And they have a
well,
way of injecting air into the I've seen them inject air, have air pumps running it that they put into the walls and stuff to dry. You do have to make sure all the water's out.
yeah, yeah.
And
So
carpet's the worst.
yeah,
Carpet's the worst.
at first we didn't want any of this, but they were kind of like, we'll pay for all of it, and they'll pay for, to move everything out and, all the pack out and for temporary housing and like to make it, kind of talked us into it of like, because otherwise it's like, well, we don't want this to be a problem like any future
So
thing.
they talked you into it, and then what? They're choosing to not pay.
So then that, yeah, basically had the one of the contractors come through. They basically, cut a hole in the floor already and like checked it out. It's like, okay, there's no mold. There's no further damage. It's like, okay, they did the further investigation you do, but now we got a hole in the floor. And then had the contractor come through, do all the pictures like throughout the house and whatever. And so now because we have like painted risers at the stairs, they're saying that that's a break and that they will only replace the one floor. And so they're basically kind of now basically, undoing what they promised and saying that like, okay, we can only change that one. We can only pay to change that one floor. And then, and if it doesn't match, then that's just kind of like your problem or whatever.
And is your communication by email, or you got a written track record?
We do have some written. I mean, there were phone calls, but we do have some like written communications as well of like, and her like, admitting that like, she made this, determination of doing all the floors, and she's even said, well, that was my mistake or whatever. It's like, well,
If it's in writing, then that's worth taking to an attorney.
yeah, yeah. So that's where, like, and finally, and every time we're like, so, I mean, and also we've got it in writing from from their contractors. Like, these are their contractors that they've had come out, and their contractors are saying that like, we can't guarantee that this floor is going to match. And like, we don't really recommend doing it this way. The insurance is saying to do it this way, but we don't. And, um, and,
Well,
documentation of that too. So, it's just been like, we keep talking to them as like, okay, so how are you going to make sure that this floor matches? And they're just like, well, it's a break, and like we're only going to place the one floor. It's like you're not you're not actually telling me like what I need to hear, that we're going to restore the house the way it was. And so that's when like we finally started talking to a public adjuster, now talking to a lawyer, and
yeah.
so
Now, public adjusters, I used to kick them off fire scenes. I mean, I've done thousands of fire investigations,
and I would kick those guys off because, hey, you're trespassing, get out of here. Um, but and usually the cases I've worked on when the public adjusters were involved didn't seem to go that well for the people that they hired them. Now,
Yeah.
the other ones, they were getting their houses repaired and they were moving along, but the house that got a public adjuster for some reason wasn't moving. So that's just something to think about.
Well, I mean, sometimes
Now
it's
on
the
your
only reason you got a public
communications,
adjuster in the first place because it wasn't moving though. So
like, I'm just coaching you a little bit.
yeah,
If
please.
if you have a verbal conversation, follow up with an email as to what was said,
Yeah.
especially, details like they're going to do this, 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 and this. If it was a verbal conversation, follow up with an email and at the bottom say something like, please confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then their failure to say, no, that's not what we said. This is what we said.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
an
if they clarified then
and then take all the emails that you have, print them out and put them in a file. And if you have a conversation and you can't get a written transcript of it, sum it up and then sign it. On this day, I had a phone call with such and such, this number. We discussed this, this, and this. This is a change from what I originally
It's
understood.
okay to write down your memory because after all, if it goes further, they've got transcripts.
Yeah.
And those can be subpoenaed if it gets that far to be that much of a problem. But they know that. So if you write down what you remember, that's at least a record that can be verified.
Yeah. If it's in writing, it can be copied verbatim to the attorney. And I mean, if I tell Dave Rickett something, that's hearsay. If I give him a piece of paper with something, there's a record of it.
Yeah.
So it's not hearsay anymore. It's another level of gosh, my brain I haven't done fire investigation. I got a PI. I'm a PI agent. I got a PI agency license, but there's like burdens of proof. There's the strangest thing about Arizona is they have a clear and convincing evidence rule. It has to be clear and convincing, which is one of the lowest burdens of proof I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But that's just Arizona.
Yeah. Well, that's like, I don't know. I mean, obviously, yes. In retrospect, we wish we documented more or whatever, right? But like,
You always will. Everybody does. Yeah.
It was amiable for like months and whatever. And like you said, they're the ones who kind of really kind of saying like, these are all the things we can do for you and all this. So it's like, and then it didn't come until it sounds like even like our adjuster probably would have gone along with it or whatever until like her boss or something got involved, and then they found like a way to like not have to pay for it all. And then even like the conversations we've still had and like the documentation we've had, it's like they don't necessarily disagree with anything we've said. They just try and like spin it and in some cases like kind of put it back like on like it's our fault or whatever, like calling it continuous flooring. Like, well, it looks continuous to me throughout the whole house, like it's all the same. The only reason like somebody painted over these risers was like as part of like selling the house. It's still hardwood underneath them. Their contractors were calling it hardwood, continuous hardwood. So like but then like, saying, well, on this date, you told us it was continuous hardwood and, and there's a break there. I was like, that first, like, you're the professional, not me. Like, as far as I know, it was continuous, flooring and really the break doesn't matter to anyone. I mean, it's obviously visually, it's all the same thing,
About every claim I've ever worked progresses just like you're saying.
Yeah. Yep. And then, and then like she also, I guess, went off some photos she found online on some like Zillow or Redfin side of our house, which were like out of date. And like, we told her that like, yeah, nothing had changed, when we bought the house, which is absolutely true. It was painted the whole, when we bought it and they've been painted the whole time. She's the one who sort of like made this assumption that like, well, these old photos are accurate. So I'm approving everything, but
she's getting pressure.
It doesn't seem like it should matter, but it's just,
she's getting pressure from her supervisors that the claim is costing too much. And so they're asking her to do some things. So
right.
She's probably not doing it because of herself. She's
right.
doing it It's you getting pressure from above.
But at this point, it's like just like, trying to continue to talk to her is just, it's like, it's the banging your head against the wall. It's like, well, how are you going to make how are you going to make the wood, or how are you going to make it look, the same? And it's just like, well, it's just a break. Well, there's a break, so we're going to only replace the one floor. It's like, that doesn't answer my question. So on to, outside help. So I
So
don't know.
do you know any attorneys? Are you a person who knows attorneys?
Well, I have through my real estate guy, he referred me to a public adjuster guy who I discussed the situation with. And he's sort of like, they can't sort of come in and take over until there's like a decision on the claim, which, is kind of still up in the air. So he referred me to the lawyer guy, and I talked to the lawyer, started a retainer, they're,
Okay.
they we're at the stage of like, he should be reaching out now to get more information, and I'll send him the information and he'll send a letter and blah, blah.
Because public adjusters behave like they're lawyers.
Mhm.
They do things that lawyers would do, but a lawyer has a license to do. So I really like the idea of going with an attorney because they're licensed. Public adjusters, uh, I have an issue. I have issues with public adjusters.
Yeah. I
The
guess the
wheels
part,
on the car, the wheels on the car they drove up, give them away.
yeah. I mean, this is probably pretty typical for, going against, big companies or whatever. But it's what really annoys me is that like, now I'm having to put all this extra expense just to do the thing that they said that they would do, you know, and even if I go to the point of like having to fight them to do it, like in a lawsuit or whatever, it's like, I've got to put out a bunch of extra money just to get them to do, the right thing.
So one
Whereas,
of the things
they've got lawyers on hand anyway. They're already
one of
playing
the
them.
things that happens when
Nothing extra to fight it. It costs me a whole bunch extra to,
one of the things that happens when lawyers get involved and it gets to court or even gets near court is it's called a settlement. And that settlement now includes money that pays the lawyers. You get
Right.
things done that you need done, and they have to pay the lawyers. That's somewhat complicated, and it's actually a lot complicated depending on the type of situation. But usually, it doesn't leave you in a big hole in your pocket. It only leaves you in a hole in your pocket if they decide that they're going to do the thing that you're supposed to do originally, early and on, while you have before it's tried to go in front of a judge.
Uh,
And then you've just got I had to have the lawyer write some letters fees.
I did over 1,000 claims for one insurance company. None of them went to court.
Right.
Yeah.
No one wants to go to court. Right.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. It's like, I mean, obviously you can settle for whatever, right? But I think at least in California, it's very hard to get them to like actually pay for like technically, like, yes, they could be on the hook for lawyers' fees if like you go to court and win, but they have to be like super egregious, not just like they'll just paint this as a disagreement or whatever. And then just be like, and even if it falls in their favor, well, we disagreed, but, or not in their favor, they'll be, well, it was a disagreement. And so, they don't owe me my lawyer's fees or anything, but
Yeah, I've only dealt this at total losses of houses and cars and injury and stuff like that in Florida. So we have our own specifically structured personal injury lawsuit laws. So
Yeah, Florida has some unique laws.
yeah.
When I went working for the insurance company, it was Liberty Mutual. They didn't have many policies in Florida for some reason.
well, everybody pulled out after Charlie, Francis, Gene, Ivan, bunch of our other friends that happened in the mid 2000s. A lot of the insurance companies pulled out of Florida for homeowners insurance.
And they started to change the maritime code. So if you were on the coast, the windows started to have these really big mullions and sills on because like you had to step over a 4-inch window steel because of the pressures they had to build.
Right. For especially 250 mile an hour wind loads and stuff like that in some areas that they have to sustain. And yeah, it's fun to build here sometimes.
Yeah.
You're coming up on 4. So anything else before we wrap up?
I don't have anything, but it was a
Chris?
good meeting.
thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for all the discussion, both professional and non.
I would absolutely encourage if you wanted to work with that team, figure out a retainer structure that makes sense for you. Figure out some boundaries. They can be soft and they can be hard. But figure out what makes sense for you so that you still have the opportunity to work with other clients and that no one is prioritized or deprioritized. So you still feel comfortable.
Yep. I agree. Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. And I'll see somebody next week.
Yep.
Okay. Bye.